Hello and welcome to Rain Francis Art. My name is Rain. Today I decided to pull out my graphite pencils and draw some lips. So let's draw. This is what I'll be using for my lips study today. I've got some Bristol Smooth paper here. It's a small little visual journal. It's 8.5, or actually 8 inches by 5.5. I'll put a link in the description of all the supplies that I've used. For the graphite, I'm using HB, and I have this extra black, which is the equivalent of a 6B, because I want a lighter and a darker. I've got a couple of blending stumps. I have my foam blender, and I have my kneaded eraser. So why don't I begin? I watched a couple of videos on how to draw lips, so I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to get this right. The first thing we want to do now, if you're doing this, when you're outlining, use a light touch. I'm going to draw a little darker so that you can see. So I'm just putting a line in the middle of my page here to divide sort of the upper and lower lip. I really hope you can see that. Let me just take a look. I just bashed my camera. Sorry about that. Yeah, okay, so you can see that all right. Now what we want to do is draw a little arc here. Just a little arc. Just like that. Now we're going to sort of draw the outline of the upper lip, and it's going to be a line like this, and it's going to meet the top of that arc that you just drew. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. And we want to try to get them as even as possible. Okay, so that's what I've done first, and what I'm going to do is just erase that straight line. And that's where the kneaded eraser comes in. Because if you use a vinyl eraser, it could kind of damage your page, your canvas. So let's use the kneaded eraser. And I just use little circles to erase the lines. There we go. Okay. Now I'm just going to take my HB and I'm just going to darken that line a little bit, just so it stands out. I'm going to go back in with my kneaded eraser because I see that I missed a few areas of the original line. All right. Let me go in and erase something. I love these kneaded erasers because you can, well, knead them and you can make them into shapes. Okay. Okay, so that part's done. Now what I'm going to do is sort of in the center here, a little higher up, I'm going to put a little V. That's, you know, the top part of your lip. I want it a little wider though. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and just erase what I don't want to see there. All right, so now we're going to create the upper lip. Now from about here, we're going to draw the lip and we're going to meet that V. Okay, and I'm going to try my best to do the same thing on the other side. It's hard for me. I'm not good with even, you know, whenever I draw my, that's a little more, okay, that's a little rounder. I always end up having one side that's kind of lopsided. I think I'm doing okay here. Let me just erase that inner line. It will probably get blended in anyway when I start shading, but I'm just being a little picky here. Okay, so that's our upper lip. Now I'm going to do the lower lip. Now right in the middle again, I guess maybe about here, I'm just going to draw a little reference line. And then I'm going to draw, that might be a little too high. Let's have a lower lip that's a little down here. Okay, so now I want to draw a very, very slight arc. Just like that, and then we are going to start shading. I'm not going to bring the line of the lip completely, you know, to the ends. I just want to leave that open for now. Now for the shading, I'm using my HB, and I'm going to use the side of my pencil. Because if I use the tip, you'll see lines, and we don't want that. And I'm going to make sure to go in the same direction. Because if I change directions, you will probably see that as well. And I'm using an extremely light touch here. And if it's too light, I can always go in and put a second layer in, so I'm not worried about that. I want to turn my pencil so that I don't wear it all down on that one side. And if you go outside the lines, don't worry about it. You can just take your kneaded eraser and just remove that. Okay, now I'm going to do the lower lip, and I'm going to shade as if there is a line here. Okay, so watch. I'm just going to create my little outline first, like that, and here too. Just a little kind of an outline to indicate the lower lip. Now I'm going in the same direction with my shading, using a very light touch. And I'm going to turn my pencil so I don't wear it down. Okay, that's our first layer. So I just want to blend what I shaded in, and I'm going to use this foam blender because it works so well with graphite. And if you're using one of these foam blenders, use a very light touch. You don't need to press down hard, because if you do, you could rip the sponge or the foam. I think I've had this same foam end on this blender for years. And I have a whole bunch of extra pieces of foam, but I don't use them because I don't need to. Eventually this one will rip just from, you know, wear and tear, but... And I'm blending in circles. I brought the blending stumps out just in case. I might use them. But for larger areas, the foam blender works really well. The brand is Sofft, S-O-F-F-T. And when I blend, I change directions because I'm trying to get rid of any lines that are there, but there are some that you can see anyway. Okay, Now we're going to create some areas where we want to highlight the lips. So I'm just going to outline a little bit, just so I know where the light areas are going to be. And on this side, I'm just drawing little spots. There. Just going to erase a little bit of my line there so I don't confuse myself. Okay, but I do want to make sure that's shaded. There we go. The thing about this too is it holds some of the graphite, so you don't have to go in and shade again. Okay, so those are the areas that I want to highlight eventually. Let's continue shading. Now what I want to do is shade using lines. And I want to do the lines in the direction of the contour of the lips. So for example, here we're going to shade like this. And over here we'll shade like this. You see what I mean? And then on the bottom like this. So just follow the contour of the lips, and we're going to basically add those lines everywhere except in those spots that we want to keep highlighted. All right, so that's what I'm doing with my HB. Now we'll go from the bottom. It's easier for me to do it like this. Okay, and I'm going to just gently blend that, very gently. Just a little bit for now. Now I'm going to grab my dark pencil, my extra black or 6B, and I'm just going to darken the line of the lip. When I do my portrait drawings, I always say I'm no good at lips and hands and ears. So I decided I want to kind of learn how to try to do this right. Not right, but you know, for me, right for me. So a little bit of shading underneath that lip. Just a little bit. I'm not pressing down hard, really. Around this area, I'm going to pull that down a little more. Because if you think of lips, normally speaking, we all have different lips, but the upper lip can sometimes overshadow the lower lip. So unless your light is coming from underneath, usually it's a little darker here. Okay, and I'm going to put just a few lines, darker lines here. And over on this side. to the bottom. Jeez, I tend to whisper when I'm alone here drawing. It's funny. Okay. I'm going to take my small blending stump and I'm going to blend that black color. And I want to bring that black down a little bit. And I'm going to blend all those lines. I really prefer using my foam blender, but I want to see how this works. Yeah, I think I'm going to use the foam blender. It works much better. I'm just blending in the direction of my lines, the contour of the lips. I don't like how those lines are showing, so why don't I just see if I can erase those with, not erase, but blend them in a little better with this blending stump. That works a little better. I do want the lines to show a little bit, but not like, you know, not like they were. Blend this in a little better too. I'm just using circular motion here to blend. And I'm going to take my 6B again, that dark, and just go ahead and darken that line again. And let's see, maybe a little darker here. And here. And I'll take that blending stump and just kind of make sure that it's blended well. I've got my HB. I want to add some more lines, but very light lines. I'm going to take my eraser and just sort of get rid of some. I'm just pushing and lifting. It's a little dark for me here. I want it to be blended better. Okay. And I'll go ahead and very gently blend those lines that I added, and I'm doing it really, really gently because I do want to see them, like I said. And this we could probably pull down a little bit to blend. and pull up to blend. Now I just want to take my kneaded eraser and I'm making a point, and I want to erase where I have outlined those highlights, and I'm going to try to erase the marks that I drew. Let me make this a better point here. Now the thing is, I don't want this to be solid white, you know what I mean? I want it to look like it's part of the creases of the mouth, of the lip. So I'm putting a few lines in there. And I'm going to take that little one, that little blender, and just blend those lines a little bit. Now another eraser you could use, I have this Tombo Mono eraser, it's a tiny little one, and I think I'm going to use that to erase my highlights because it has a finer touch to it rather than using the kneaded eraser. Just trying to make it look like highlights on the lips. I'm just going to use that Tombo Mono eraser again, and I'm just going to put in a few little highlights. Not many, just a few. And always following the contour of the lip. Okay, so what do I want to do? I want to take the dark 6B, just add a little bit more dark here, and I'm going to pull that down and blend it in. Because I want there to be a good balance between the dark and the light, the shadows and the highlights. I had a brain fart there. Couldn't remember what I was saying. I'm just smoothing out that line a little bit. I'm totally winging this right now. I don't even remember what I saw in the tutorial. I feel like it's a little too dark. I don't know why. I'm not going to worry about that. So I think I'm good here. I might have some graphite still on my blender, so I'm just going to put in a few little and blend them well. Oh, I don't like what I did there. Let me fix that. This is why we have these erasers, right? I didn't want it to be that dark. There we go. Oh, if you're wondering, I have this 1.5 inch paintbrush that I got at the dollar store. It works really well, like to get all this stuff off of your page, all of the eraser bits and things like that. So I'm going to grab that little Tombo Mono and I'm going to lighten up that line because I'm not crazy about it. There. I'm good with that. Now let's work on the upper lip. Grabbing my HB again, and remember we sort of made that line up here because that's where we're going to highlight. And we're going to do the same thing with the lines. Make sure you contour them, shape of the lip. I'm just going to show you. Just like that. But what I want to do is create a little bit of a line, because this part's going to be a little darker than the top part of the lip. So I'm just going to do a little bit of a line. Just as a reference, because like I said, this part down here is going to be darker. Okay, so why don't I go ahead and put in my lines? I'm using my HB. Okay, so I'm going to continue here. Got my lines going. I would like to shade just a little bit though. Just a little over the lines, but not on the whole lip. Just kind of in that bottom area where it's going to be darker. And again, I'm using the side of my pencil. I'm not pressing down hard. I'm going to go in the same direction all the way across. All right, so I'm going to start blending a little bit. Let me wipe that off. And I'm blending in the direction of the contour of the lip. Okay. If you want to know how to clean your blending stumps, these things, I have a video on that. I'll put it in the cards above and I'll link it in the description. It's super easy. It's just a lot of us don't take the time to do it. And you really should, because they do get dirty. Just blending around the top of the bottom lip, or the bottom of the top lip. Ooh, confusing. Okay, now let's take our dark, and if you really look at a close-up of an upper lip, it's not flat like that. There are little grooves in it. So I'm starting in the middle, and you see what I mean? Look, there are little kind of grooves like this. And in between those grooves, I'm just shading in. And they're not even. Some of them are smaller. Some of them come down a little further or higher. You're just making these little grooves. Do you know what I mean? gives the impression that the lip might be slightly open. So I'm going to go and do that everywhere. Across the upper lip. And they kind of disappear a little bit when you get to the edge here. Like I'd probably stop about here. Looks kind of like Frankenstein's monster right now, like they've been sewn together. But I am going to be blending, so stopped about here, I'll stop about here. I'm just kind of drawing U shapes and then go and fill in the dark in between. Okay. So before I start blending in, I'm going to take this dark and I'm going to put, remember that area that we had drawn out? I want that to be darker, but I'm going to be using an extremely light touch here. A very light touch. I want to ask you guys something, and this is totally off topic of drawing here. Do you notice that when you're doing stuff, when you're drawing, when you're chopping vegetables, your pinky tends to stick out? Do you notice that? Pay attention to that next time you're doing something. And I've seen that other people on their videos, their pinkies, or these two, stand out. And whenever I notice that on mine, I go, get that pinky in. I don't know why that happens, you know? Maybe the pinky isn't meant to stay by the ring finger. Okay, so I'm going to take my foam blender and very gently blend up. And I do want to go in and get rid of those little lines, though. I'm going to have to use my blending stump for that one. Just so they're not as obvious, you know? We don't want her, I think she's a she, we don't want her to look like she's got chapped lips either. Just using little circles. And I'm going to blend up again. My dog is getting comfortable over there, making a lot of noise. Okay, so we've got that dark area. I'm going to try to bring that up a little bit. You know what? I don't like those lines. I'm going to go in and erase them and then add some more graphite. Okay. There might be enough graphite on my foam blender. Let me see. Add a little bit more. I don't want to erase all those grooves that I made, but I may have to redo them because I'm being extremely picky here. And I lost my little dark area here between the lips, so I'm just going to put that back in. And I'll use my little blending stump just to blend that in. I want to add a little bit more shading to the upper lip. So I'm just going to do some lines with my HB, trying to follow the contour of the lip up here. And I'm going around that area that I wish to keep highlighted. I'll be erasing anyway, but so if I get any lines into there, it's not a big deal. All right, and let's see, I'm going to take the 6B again, and I'm not happy with this area here. I'm just going to add a little more 6B, maybe coming up a little bit in the middle, and you can see how lightly I'm pressing, because I don't want it to be dark like this. I do want this area down here to be darker, but I want the dark to come up just a little bit. So I'll take my blending stump and very softly blending in circles. And now I'm going to blend in the direction of those lines. Now I'm going to grab that HB again. And I just want to make sure that the lines are very lightly drawn in. All right, blending with the blending stump again. Okay, now I'm just going to grab that little Tombo Mono eraser, and I'm going to get rid of some of that graphite here for the highlight on top of the lip. And anywhere that I see areas that I want to erase. Now I've got my kneaded eraser, and you see that outline there? I don't want that to show so much, so I'm going to go in and just use circles to try to get rid of it. And oh, this kneaded eraser was sitting by my window, and it's, let me cut that up, it's freezing by the window, so it's not very pliable right now. But I'm going to try to get rid of that line up there as best as I can. I don't mind if it shows a little bit, but I don't want it to look like I'm outlining the lips, you know. So I'll take my HB. I'm just going to go and put in a little bit of shading there, and I'm using circles. And I'm going to use my little blending stump here And with little circles, blend that in all around the edges of the lips. Just want to soften all that up. Now what I'm going to do is with the little blending stump, I'm going to blend around that highlighted area, just so it looks a little less like I erased it. All right. I'm just going to look at my lips here. Got my Tombo Mono eraser, and I might just do a few erased lines here now. Here now. What am I saying? Here and there. There we go. Speak, Rain. And let me look at the bottom here. Maybe I want to shade the bottom a little more now that I'm looking at it. It's a little too light around the sides here. You know what? I'm going to just do this whole thing and come back and put in my highlights. Yeah, I know it's... I don't want to be a perfectionist. I really don't. But when I'm looking at it, I don't like what I'm looking at, so I gotta fix it for myself. Okay, now I'll use the Tombo eraser again and put in my little highlights. And then a few lines here and there. Not many though. And I'll go in with my blending stump and just kind of blend around a little bit to make sure it doesn't look like eraser marks. That's all. Could use a little bit of highlight in the middle here. This one should be a little brighter. I'm just softening up the edges of where I erased. The last thing I want to do is just create a little bit of a shadow. So I'm just taking that 6B, and with little circles, I'm just going to show you where I'm placing the shadow till about here. That needs to be darker than the actual bottom lip so that it shows. Ooh, I lost my voice there. It's dry in my house because of the heaters are on. You know, it's winter, so. Alright, so how about I take my blending stump. I'm going to gently, circular motionly put in that shadow there. And with my foam blender, I'm going to soften it. right, there's my shadow. So my friends, those are my lips. Not mine. Mine aren't that full and pouty. But this was a lot of fun to do. I'm so glad that I tried it because, like I said at the beginning, I watched a couple of videos on how to draw lips and how to paint lips, and I figured in my head, yeah, no problem, I can do this, you know. But then, as I said, as I was going along, I completely forgot about the tutorial and what I was supposed to do. So I just kind of, oops, I had a little reference photo in front of me, and I decided to just follow the reference photo and see how I did. Most of the stuff I remembered, like the highlight areas, I remembered that from the tutorial. But now I've mastered lips and I've created my own. I hope you enjoyed this lesson today, my friends. And if you did, please don't forget to like the video and hit the notification bell if you don't want to miss any of my new uploads. Please leave a comment as well and subscribe. Don't forget to subscribe. I really appreciate all of your support and thank you for being here. We'll see you next time on Rain Francis Art. Bye.